Well, hello there, everyone. We are fixing to jump right into our next part of our review of John Maxwell's book, Developing the Leader Within You. This, I believe, is part 6, and we're going to be covering a full chapter today. As a matter of fact, there's so much in this next chapter, which is chapter 5, that I just really don't think I'm going to be able to get to it all. We might be able to. I'm going to give it a try here. I'm going to set a timer and just hope. So we'll just see how it goes. So my name is Jim Laughter. I live here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I hope you've seen some of these recordings before. If not, go back and look at the others. They're all on the same YouTube channel. I'm going to share my screen here, and we will just get started. Try not to belabor the point too much. So here we go. Let's just get started. We are working on this book right here, John Maxwell's Developing the Leader Within You. And this has really been an interesting book. This book is really full of just a lot of information. If you don't have the book, you need to order it. You can get it on eBay for $4, $5, $6, whatever. I have learned that the book has been revised. There's 1 or 2 chapters in my book that are no longer in the new books, and so you're getting the full kitty today. Or at least when we get through with this thing, you're going to have the original version. We're working on John Maxwell's Developing the Leader Within You, and we've come to the conclusion. I'm just going to do a very, very, very quick overview. We've come to the conclusion that everything rises and falls on leadership. And this is what we're doing. We're working on developing the leader that's in you, that's inside of all of us. I call him letting the tiger go, so there's a tiger down inside of you. If you are serious about fulfilling leadership positions, then you're going to have to dig down inside of you, because I promise you it's not laying on the surface. But everything you do, particularly if you're in business, and that's what we do, we talk a lot about business. I do this for our business group, for our marketing group, and also for anybody else who wants to listen in. But everything falls and rises and falls on leadership. Any success that you have is going to be attached to your ability to lead your business and to lead your group if you're doing a marketing group. And if your business fails, it's going to be due to you not leading your group. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Now, we've covered a few of the chapters. Chapter 1, we talked about influence, and we talked about the definition of leadership and boiled it down to one word, and that one word is influence. Everybody influences somebody, and everybody is influenced by somebody. Then we looked at chapter 2, and we talked about priority, setting things in order, doing things in the right order at the right time, setting priorities. That priorities is the key to leadership, and it is the fact or the condition of being regarded or treated as more important. There are things in your life that are more important than other things. You will have to prioritize. Chapter 3, we talked about the most important ingredient to leadership, and that is integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles and moral uprightness. And then we ended up with, or we finished chapter 4 with the creating positive change. We talked about that on our last session. I recommend you go back and look at the last session, and that's talking about the ultimate test of leadership. This week, we are going to jump right into chapter 5, and we're going to talk about problem solving, because problem solving is the single quickest way to gain leadership. I'm going to hide I need to hide something here. Nope, that's not it. That's not what I need to hide. A second. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. All right, here we go. So problem solving is the quickest way to gain leadership. Let's just jump right into it here. Let's talk about the definition of the word solve. We're talking about problem solving. In all of life, there's problems, and every problem can be solved. Well, pretty much every problem can be solved. And so looking at the dictionary definition of the word solve, we find that the solve is a verb. It's another action word, and it means to find an answer to, or an explanation for, or the means of effectively dealing with a problem or a mystery. Here's some of the synonyms. Now, I like synonyms as much as I like the regular word, because a synonym really brings out meanings in the dictionary definition. The synonyms, it means to find an or the answer to find a or the solution. This is how it's a solve. And then there's to resolve is another good word for solve. To find a problem, work out a solution, and resolve that problem. To work it out, to cipher, to decode, to translate, to interpret. You're going to run across things in your leadership position that you're just flat going to have to interpret, because there may be more than one way to get around a problem. It means to get to the bottom of something. It means to make heads or tails. Have you ever have you ever told somebody, I can't make heads or tails of that? That's what it's talking about. I'm not talking about a corn flip. It means that there's something that you're not seeing completely clear, and you may just have to try to find a new solution to it, to disentangle it, to unfold it, to expound on it, that sort of thing. So these are some great definitions of the words solve. Now, here's a book that I want you to get familiar with. If you don't have this book, order it. You can find it on eBay for, I think I bought mine with tax and delivery and everything, was under $5. Now, I bought this one as a hardbound copy. You can get them in paperback for just almost nothing. But this is a book by a guy named F.F. Fournies, Fournies, and he is he works as a coach in major industries, businesses, that sort of thing. And what he specialized in was workplace situations, and the book is called Coaching for Improved Work Performance. In other words, he would go into an industry where there was problems amongst the ranks, or things weren't getting done right, or a procedure was confusing to this group and to that group, or whatever. Some people could catch it, some people couldn't. And he went in and he would teach the management staff about coaching their teams and their crews to work together and to problem solve and that sort of thing. And he says in his book that there are 4 common reasons why people do not perform as they should. And anybody in any kind of a working environment you'll know that there are some people who do, and there are some people that don't. You know, there's an old saying that those who do, those who can't, or those who can do, and those that can't manage. Okay, so he came up with these 4 common reasons of why people do not perform as they should. And the first one, I'm going to go through 3 of them real quick. The first one is that they don't know what they're supposed to do. That's one of the most common reasons in a workplace, is that people just don't know what they're supposed to do. The second is they don't know how to do it. And the third one is they don't know why they should do it. Now, this is common in the workplace. Now, in our industry, which is network marketing, direct sales, we invite people, just everyday ordinary people, to join us in our business, and we build teams of people together to leverage time and effort and money and all of that sort of thing. And for some reason, those of us in leadership, we seem to think that if we bring a new person into our business, that just because we know what we're doing and why we should do it and how we're doing and how to do it, we seem to think that everybody else does too. And it's not true. You bring a new person into your business, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it, and they don't know why they should do it. So it's the same thing in a working environment, in the office that you work in the factory that you work in, the store, whatever you do. When you first walk into the job, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to do it. You don't know why. That's why most companies nowadays have a training program that they put you through before you actually get on the work floor. So those three are common. People don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't know why they're doing it. But there's another reason that I think is more up to date or more valid than just these three, because a person can be taught what to do, how to do, and why to do. They can be taught that. As a leader, that's your responsibility to teach them. But another reason why people don't perform up to what they should do is because there's obstacles beyond their control. There's things that they just can't seem to get around. So that's what we're going to deal with. We're going to deal with this fourth reason because problems, and we're talking about problem solving, but problems crop up everywhere. Problems crop up at work, they crop up at home, they crop up just in your general life. If you're in network marketing, particularly if you're in any kind of sales business, then there's never a day goes by that something doesn't pop up where somebody in your distribution group or whatever will say, well, Jim, the company didn't do this or the company didn't do that. And I have found most generally that it's not the company. I found in most general it's the leadership, that it's the person in that team who just doesn't make it clear to their group how and why things work. Most direct sales groups, any good direct sales group or even any good industry, has a set way to do things. They have a system, and too often people try to shortcut the shortcut, and it gets everything all out of whack. And so if the leader is shortcutting the shortcut, what do you expect your team to do? They're going to do the same thing you do. Anything you do right, they will do. Anything you do wrong, they will do. Okay. So there's sometimes a problem jumps up that the leader kind of tries to sidestep, and it passes on to his team, and it's just not something that you want to happen. Now, let me show you this graph that I found here. And I hope this makes some sense to you. Let me get my picture out of the way just a little bit there. So I found this graph, and it talks about where most people often turn to get help with the problem, for help with the problem. So a problem comes up, and it doesn't matter what kind of problem it is, whether it's a personal problem, a social problem, a work problem, it doesn't matter. Problems are going to pop up, and they're going to pop up on you. Okay, and that's just going to happen. And so I found this graph, and it talks about where most people often turn for help with the problem. As you can see at the bottom of it down here, that I only did it up to 60%. Let me see. I'll get that off of there. All right. There we go. Oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. All right. So I only ran it up to 60%, from 0 to 60. The other 40% after that really is kind of a floating variable. So we're not going to get into that, but most people will turn to someone for help. And the first people that most people turn to when you have a situation, the thing that most people turn to is quite simply they turn to family members. If you have a problem, most people turn to family members. I do the same thing. I do the same thing with my telephone. Okay. It's an iPhone, and I guess I like it. I've been using them for a long time, but I don't always understand it. My computer, I'm not techno savvy like some people are. So if I've got a technical problem, I turn to my son. My son is my oldest son, Samuel, is just a whiz at computers, and he can look at my computer and say, well, Dad, you've got this setting off, or you got this turned on, it shouldn't be turned on, or whatever, and he can click a button and fix a problem that I've been fighting with for a week. And then you go with this. Now, if it's on my telephone, I can ask him and he can figure it out. If not, I can ask one of my grandkids, because they always know the answers too. But family members, we rely on family members a lot of time just for quick, easy, resolvable problems, easy things. If I have a flat tire on my truck, I've got family members that I can call. I wish I could get one to come over to get it running right, because it's not running right now, but I don't have any of my family that is mechanically inclined. They don't know how to use computers, don't know how to use it, don't know how to use the tire iron. Okay, but family members. And then you turn to your friends. Friends are always a valuable source. These are the people that you can call on at a given moment. Now, these first two things right here in network marketing, we call this hot market. These are people that we know intimately that we can call on and get help and get advice and that sort of thing. The third source that people call on a lot of times is the Bible. Now, if you don't believe in the Bible, that's okay. That's your choice. But there's a lot of good resources in the Bible that people can turn to, especially in spiritual matters and that sort of thing. And there's generally something in there that you can find that will help you with situations. The next are other books. I have a large library. If there's something that I need to look up, I generally have a book that I've got on the shelf, or one that I've read that I know what's in it, and I can generally find answers to questions or problems that I have. If not, there's always the internet. You know how truthful that is. I tell you what, everything on the internet is true. There's no doubt about it. Of course, I don't know if that's true, because I saw a quote one time that says said that not everything on the internet is true. And it was quoted by Abraham Lincoln. So I don't really know if that's a good quote or not. And then another source that people go to is they go to the priest or they go to their minister, because we are a social group. We are a social country. And whether you believe in God or not, or faith, or don't have faith at all or not, it doesn't really matter to me. But the truth is, this is a faith-based country, and a lot of the people go to their priest or to their minister for advice on problems. Now, just remember that priest, that minister, is a person just exactly like you and may not have the experience to deal with that particular problem. Just because they sit in a pastoral chair or wear the collar around backwards does not make them an expert on everything. So you need to make sure that the person that you're going to for help actually knows what they're talking about, not just hold a position. Another good source of help is audio. I used to say listening to tapes, but nobody listens to a tape. I was cleaning out one of my cupboards the other day, trying to straighten up some of the mess that's in there. And I ran across a whole stack of tapes. I've got a whole stack of good tapes, and I don't have anything to play them on. I don't have a tape player anymore. I can't play them. I got CDs. I found CDs. I don't have a CD player anymore. My computer is completely a solid state. I guess that's what they call it. All digital. Doesn't have a disc player in it anymore. The only disc player I've got is my DVD player hooked up to my television. I could plug one in there and listen to it if I wanted to, I guess. But listen to good audio by good leaders. There's always good audio that you can get. You can either buy them on CD, you can download them off the internet. There's all kinds of things that you can find from good, positive leadership. Another source that people go to is their boss or their employer. And then generally, as a last resort, we will seek professional help. And sometimes that should be the first place we start. We seek professional help. We all have to go to the doctor from time to time, and sometimes that doctor uses a examination couch and not an examination table. Now, I'm not saying get reliant on a psychiatrist or anything like that. You don't need to. You're not that messed up. You're really not. Okay. So this chapter deals with two things that are needed to effectively solve problems. I'm going to get onto those right quick. I want to tell you what they are. And the two things are the right attitude and the right action plan. I'm going to read you an excerpt out of this book that I found very, very interesting, particularly about the right attitude. So I'm going to read this I'm going to read this out of the book. So if it looks like I'm looking down at a page and reading it off, instead of just being the brilliant person that I am, just making it up as I go, that's because I'm reading it directly off the book, not talking off the cuff, being the brilliant person that I normally am. In any case, so Norman Vincent Peale said that positive thinking is how you think about a problem. Enthusiasm is how you feel about a problem. The two together determine what you do about a problem. If I could do anything for people, I would help them change their perspective, not their problems. Positive thinking does not always change our circumstances, but it will always change us. When we are able to think right about tough situations, then our journeys through life become better. You've heard me say it before. I believe I can be a better me. And that's what it's talking about here. This quote from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale is saying, don't try to change a problem, try to change you. Change your attitude, get the thinking right. Too many people's got stinking thinking. They need a checkup from the neck up. That's what they need. And then when it talks about the right action plan, it says, is it not true that too many times we have a surplus of simple answers and a shortage of simple problems? Occasionally, we all feel like the guy in the cartoon who said, I try to take just one day at a time, but lately several days have attacked me at once. Okay, so sometimes your problems are just going to just build up. They're just going to pile up on you. And you're going to have to find a solution to those problems. So let's go right along here, because we all have them. We all have problems, and sometimes those problems overwhelm us. Sometimes they can get on top of us and press us down. And if we don't have the right attitude, and if we don't have the right problem solving abilities, these things can get on us and just really wear us down. But I'm going to tell you the truth of something, that the size of the person is more important than the size of the problem. We're all going to have a problem, but it's going to be dependent on the size of the problem solver, not the size of the problem. We can overcome any problem. Sometimes, we're in America, in particular, we are generational people. We look at the different age groups of people and we assign generations to them. I'm a baby boomer. I was born in the 1950s. And there's a Generation X, and there's all these others. The generation before me was called the greatest generation. And all through the generations, there's always been problems, and every generation has suffered problems that seem insurmountable. Think about 100 years ago, not quite 100 years ago, but just short of 100 years ago, was the Great Depression. They had the stock market crash in 1929 when the stock market crashed and the American economy just went belly up overnight. It just went belly up. Now I can tell you right now that bankers foresaw this coming and they were unable to stop it. But the stock market crash in 1929 caused perfectly sane people to jump out of a 20-story building and kill themselves because they couldn't see any other way out. And that stock market crash put half of the country, I guess, probably half the company, out of work. Industries closed down, stores closed. It sounds like COVID, doesn't it, in 2020? Okay, so everything shut down because of that stock market crash. And that was back in the 1920s, 1930s. And the people who lived back then said, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen. How are we going to get out of that? But the American people rose up and they dug in their heels and they found solutions. They had an industrial revolution. People came together. The economy rebounded. And the country dug out of that because there was right-minded people who didn't just look at the problem, they looked at the solutions. There were people at that time who were bigger than the problem. Years later, I don't remember the attack on Pearl Harbor, but when Pearl Harbor was bombed, the country stopped. It just stopped. It was in shock. And then the country caught its breath. And it said, we've got a problem. We've got an industrialized country that has attacked us. And the people caught their breath. And they said, we've got a problem. What are we going to do about it? And the country went to work. And they became the manufacturer of the greatest military force that's ever lived. And we went to war. It was a justifiable war. And we're not going to get into all that. The battle spread through Europe through the 1940s. We developed the A-bomb. Ended the war in 2 giant explosions because people with the vision said, we've had enough. We're going to do something about it. There's always been a problem. But every time we've come upon a problem, we've managed to find a solution. I remember when John Kennedy was killed, the company just fell on its knees. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. Martin Luther King was assassinated. We had the 3 Mile Island disaster. We had a bunch of Marines that was taken prisoner in Lebanon. And every time one of these things happened, people said, wow, nothing like this has ever happened before. And I'm going to tell you that through our history, things like this have happened. Things like this have always happened. And things like this always will happen. When a bunch of maniacs crashed airplanes into the World Trade Towers, New York City on September 11th, 9/11, our country fell on its knees for a minute and then rose up and said, we're not going to let this happen, and found a solution and went out and kicked some booty. One of my favorite commentators, one of my favorite commentators, who was born right here in Tulsa, only a few miles down the street from our house. His name was Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey said that in times like these, it is always helpful to remember that there have always been times like these. So you're always going to have a problem. Problems give meaning to life. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to have to develop some problem-solving skills. But by the same token, you have to come to the realization that without problems, there would be no solutions. Problems give meaning to life. Look at this fellow right here. This is the American eagle. You may not believe it, but the American eagle has problems. Now, this rascal here can take off and he can fly fast. He can fly way up high. He can dive down on prey from great distances. He can see crystal clear. Great speed. If you ever seen one soaring in the sky, it's magnificent. But you know what the biggest problem is that the eagle has? The biggest problem that the eagle has is the air itself. Sometimes it's the air that holds the eagle down. The very element that offers resistance to a flying, to his flying is at the same time the condition for flight. So the thing that fights him are currents, and the things that fights him is high wind. Sometimes up in the higher elevations, it's hard to get enough air under his wings to stay aloft. So sometimes the very thing that pushes against us, just like the air pushing against the eagle, sometimes the very thing pushing against us is the condition that we need to stay aloft. The eagle needs that air resistance to stay in the sky. You can't fly in a vacuum. You as a leader cannot fly in a vacuum. People need to change their perspectives, not the problem. Don't look at the obstacle as an obstacle that'll hold that holds you down. Sometimes the obstacle, sometimes the problem is the very thing that you need to hold you up. If you eliminate all the problems, then your life will lose its creative tension. I hope that makes sense. You've got to have problems. Now, you just don't want to be overwhelmed with problems. You know, it kind of reminds me, and I know I'm babbling here, but it reminds me of the Deep South early in the American history. And I like to talk about that sort of thing a lot. And I know I kind of babble a little bit about it. But in the Deep South, there was a time when the mainstay of the Deep South was cotton. Cotton was king. There was no other crops in the Deep South except for cotton. And I'm not going to get into slavery and all that foolishness. I'm not getting into that. Okay. I'm just going to say that there was a time when cotton ruled the South, and most of the cotton in the world came from the Deep South of the United States. And it was harvested, it was grown, it was harvested, it was sent to the manufacturer, it was sent to the mills, and most of the cloth in the United States was made from Southern cotton. A lot of the cloth made in Europe came from cotton grown in the South. And then around the year 1910, 1912, somewhere in that neighborhood, or actually, no, actually, I guess it was before then, a little critter crossed the Mexican border, and I don't mean a little brown guy. I'm talking about a little critter about that big crossed the Mexican border and invaded the cotton crops. He was called a boll weevil. And the boll weevil attacked the cotton crops, and they came in by the billions, and they got into the southern cotton, and they destroyed the plants, and they ruined the crop. And the cotton farmers back then knew that they had to change. They faced a problem, and they said, "What are we going to do? We cannot grow our cotton." So that is when that's when the South decided that they had to change their perspective, and then that's the boll weevil is what forced the Southern farmers to change to crops such as soybeans and peanuts. And they learned how to raise cattle. They learned how to raise hogs. They learned how to raise chickens and all of these things. And so as a result of changing their crop, solving their problem, they became more prosperous than they would have if they had just stuck with cotton. Sometimes the problem creates the solution. Been a lot of outstanding people have had to overcome problems in their lives. I'm not going to be able to go into all of it. And so let's just let me just move along here. I don't want to delve too deep. You know who I'm talking about. I always talk about Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Franklin Roosevelt. And Franklin Roosevelt, which was the longest serving president in the history of the United States. He was elected time after time after time. And actually, I believe he is the one who, the reason that we have term limits now for the presidency. There was one other fella that I like to talk about. This was a young boy. And and his teachers told his parents, "This kid's never going to make it. He's too slow. We actually think he's mentally retarded. He'll never amount to anything. Forget education. This kid does not have it in him to become anything. He's a slow learner. He's mentally inept. Right off his education, he's uneducatable." His name was Albert Einstein. Everybody thought he was a dunce. Come to find out, he was the most genius people who's ever lived on this earth. He overcame those obstacles. It wasn't that he wasn't capable of learning. There were just some things he didn't want to learn. Albert Einstein never knew his own phone number. Never knew his own phone number. When asked why he didn't know his phone number, he said, "Why would I put something in my mind, in my brain, to take up that space when I can look it up in a book? I can find my phone number in a book if I ever need to call myself." Albert Einstein. Another one of the great philosophers of this country, somebody that I admire from a distance, said this: "The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain." If you want the rainbow, you just got to put up with the rain. Now, that great philosopher is Dolly Parton. Of course, now by the same token, Dolly Parton is the lady who says it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. So you can take it however you want to. The world, there's a world of difference between a person who has a big problem and a person who makes a problem big. You can over-exaggerate your problems and make them bigger than they need to be. Let's move right along. My problem is not my problem. That's what some people say. My problem is not my problem, and I have lost my place. Let me find my place here. All right, let's just keep going on. One of my favorite little guys is Charlie Brown. You know him. Charlie Brown can find a problem for any solution. You ever seen Charlie Brown smile? Peanuts character? Very, very rarely. You ever see him smile? He's always down in the mouth. Okay, let's keep going. Let me just keep moving here. I've got a lot of stuff to cover, and I've already been on this thing for, oh Lord, 39 minutes. The problem is something I can do something about. A problem is something I can do something about. Fred Smith, founder of FedEx, says, if I can't do something about a problem, it's not my problem. It's a fact of life. There are just some things that you just can't do anything about. When I was a kid, there was actually when I was very, very young, there was a product on the market called Burma Shave. I don't know if you remember this. This was a shaving lotion, shaving cream. And they advertised on billboards, but their advertisements were always long. They were big. And with the advent of the interstate highway and the American highway system, cars would go past their billboards so fast, there wasn't time for people to read the billboard, and they started losing money. So what they did is they took their billboards and they broke them down into little bite-sized sections. And if you ever seen a Burma Shave commercial, they would take that commercial and they would take it and make 4 or 5 signs and space them along the highway at about 100 yards between signs. And they had one that was one of my favorites. And on the first sign, it said, a peach looks good. And that's all it said on the first sign. 100 yards down the road, second side says, with lots of fuzz. That's all it said. Then the next sign down said, but man's no peach. And the next sign said, and never was. And then the next sign said, Burma Shave. And I want you to know that that tactic for advertising turned the Burma Shave company around and made it a household name for the next 5 decades. Burma Shave was the #1 selling shaving solution in the country. If there had been no answer to the problem, there would have been no problem. Burma Shave found the answer. It wasn't just a fact of life. Let's keep going. Great leaders look at problems before they become emergencies. I'm going to shoot through these because I'm just babbling, running out of time. Get this book. Read this book. I want to hold this to an hour, and I've got at least another hour's worth of notes, so I want to try to shoot this. Great leaders usually recognize the problem in the following sequence. So great leaders look at problems before they become emergencies. The first thing is they sense it before they see it. Leaders, if you're going to be a leader, you've got to develop some sense of intuition. Sense problems. You can feel in your business when your business isn't going the way it should be going. You can feel it, you can sense it. It'll be in your numbers. The second thing they do is they begin looking for it and asking questions. This is curiosity. Watch your business, see how it's growing. Look at the people in your business who are producing and those who are not. You may have to get into a line of your business and shore it up. What you may have to do in a line of business is start looking for problems in that line's leadership. You may have to go down into that line and find another leader to shore it up. But curiosity. The next one is leaders gather data, whichever Star Trek you like. Okay, but they gather data. They start processing the information. Leaders share their feelings and findings with a few trusted colleagues. This is communication. This is communicating. You should build around you a circle of influence, people that you influence and people that influence you, a trusted group of people that you can absolutely rely on and depend on, and communicate your feelings and your findings with them. Now, in network marketing and in direct sales, I always recommend that you counsel up, that you never complain down. Okay. So you want to be able, or you can even complain up if you need to, but always seek counsel from people who are ahead of you in your line of business. If the people who are ahead of you in their line of business know what they're doing. Now, there are people who get into positions who don't actually know what they're doing when they're there. Okay. You may have to work around some of that. If you're in a networking business and the people ahead of you, let's say that you are brought into a network business, you're sponsored or hosted or however your business works, and the person who brought you in is ineffective, can't answer your questions, doesn't really know much about the company, doesn't know about the product, there's every possibility that you may have to look past that person and work your way up your line of leadership until you find somebody that can effectively help you. Again, that's all part of communicating. You will also have people who will come in after you who will seek the same thing from you. Great leaders define the problems, and they do that by setting them out in writing. You're never going to remember your problems, all of them, because you're going to have to dig out some solutions. Leaders, check their resources. Check your resources. This is called evaluating. Not everything that everybody tells you is going to be accurate. Now, I say this, hopefully with some humility. I can tell you right now that don't listen to every word I say. I'm a notorious storyteller. Okay. I'm not going to lie to you and mislead you, but sometimes you need to check your sources. That's why I recommend you buy these books, so that you know that what I'm telling you is actually a source from a source that has some authority. And then a leader make a decision. Sometimes when you're in a leadership position, you just have to make a decision. And great leaders are seldom blindsided. Very rarely does a company fall by sudden choice or by sudden death. Generally, when a company falls or falters, it's something that they've seen coming for a long time, and they're rarely ever blindsided. And generally, if the leadership in it is right, then they will find a solution to help the people in their business not get hurt. And we've had that recently in our networking business, where the company that we were with could not survive COVID. But our leadership found a way to fold that company into another. And those of us who are building business were able to bring all of our business over and keep it alive. Now, not everybody came over with us. Not everybody did. And that's okay. And the reason that's okay is because they weren't doing anything in the other business anyhow. So it was not a great loss. And that just happens. Great leaders are rarely ever blindsided. One of my favorite things to watch, and I know I'm babbling again. One of my favorite things to watch is MMA fights. I like it. I don't do it, but I like to watch these fellas get out there and fight. Let the best man stand. And I've seen them fight for 3, 4, 5 rounds. And I'm talking about hard fighting. But a lot of times, a fighter gets knocked out in the first few seconds of a fight. And it's rarely, ever, does he ever get hit with a straight punch to get knocked out. Generally, a fighter who gets knocked out by a punch he didn't see coming. And as a leader, you've got to watch for those punches, because if you don't watch out, somebody will blindside you. So kind of keep these things in mind. Solve task problems quickly, because people problems will take longer. Things will come up in your business, particularly in networking and in any kind of business. Doesn't matter if you own a store, restaurant, hot dog truck, doesn't matter what it is. There's going to be problems that are going to come up, and these are task problems. These are things that you can look at, you can easily identify, and you can get on with it. People problems take longer. Make a time to commit to people. If you are a leader, you are leading people. If you are in a network marketing group, you have a team of people that will come in after you, and you will rely on them to produce your product or to sell the product that you represent. And you've got to make time. You got to make a time commitment to those people. This is one of the reasons that I do these book reports, these book reviews. Generally, every one of them takes about an hour, but I promise you, for every hour that I put on the screen, I put 12 to 15 hours or more into study and to preparation. And the reason for that is because I want to provide this to the people in our business, and then to other people who come on YouTube and watch this, to let you know that I am committed to the growth of the people that I am responsible for. I take time to commit to people. I'm available to answer questions. At the end of this session, I will provide my phone number and my email address. And I don't care who you are or where you are. I don't even care if you're in my business group. You can call on me to answer questions about network marketing. Now, I don't have all the answers, but any answer I don't have, I can find. So make a time commitment to people. Develop, how can I say that? Those who never take time to develop people skills, or now I'll say it a different way. Those who never take time to develop people, not people skills, but people, end up solving problems for those people. So take the time to develop people. Duplicate yourself, and you'll be miles and miles ahead. Then the second one is never solve a problem for a person. Solve it with that person. If somebody comes to you with a problem, don't say, okay, let me take care of it, I'll get back with you later. That won't work. It's like the old saying, if you give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. If you teach him how to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. Don't solve problems for people. Be a problem solver, but be a people builder. Never solve a problem for a person. Solve it with that person. Use your support system. In our old business that we were with before, we had a learning center. I was forever referring people to a learning center. With our new business that we're in, we have a website set up with all the training on it, with everything that you could possibly want to know about our business, how to do it, all the history of it, everything is there. On that one site, I can send a person who has a problem can send them to that site and say, look it up here. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll help you. Here's the problem-solving process. I'm going to shoot through these because I know that I am running short of time. I really am. The problem-solving process is this. Identify the problem. Identify the problem. Prioritize the problem. Put that problem in its order, in its sequence of the order it should be in. If it's a major problem, it's going to be at the top of the list. But if it's a little problem like filing or something like that, put it at the bottom of the list. Prioritize the problem. Some problems are not as important as others. Define the problem. Define that problem. Let me give you some quick steps to defining the problem. Ask the right questions. You can define a problem by asking the right questions. Don't speculate. Don't speculate about the problem. Ask the right questions. Ask process-related questions. Second, talk to the right people. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret here. You want to talk to the right people, but you want to talk to people who know what they're talking about. Don't listen to somebody who thinks they know everything. You've heard about old Mr. Know-it-all. Don't listen to him. He's not your solution. These people have blind spots. The person who knows everything is resistant to change. They'll tell you, well, that's not the way we do it. That's not the way we did it at the old job. That's not the way we did it in the old company. You got to talk to the right people. In our business now that we're in, I can't go back to the same old support group that I went to before. And in some instances, simply because some of the old people that were in our leadership in the old company didn't come with us to the new company. They don't know the first thing to know about the new company. They can tell you about the old company. They don't know anything about our new situation. Those people are blind. They resist change. That's why they didn't come over. Third, get the hard facts. Once the facts are clear, once you get the facts and the facts are clear, the solution will jump out at you. You'll find the solution. And finally, get involved in the process. Don't sit back and say to your upline leadership or to your boss or to your employer, whatever, don't say, solve this problem for me. I've got a problem. Now it's your problem. No, it's not. If you're in network marketing, particularly network marketing, it is not your upline's business. And I hate the word upline, but I'm going to use it anyhow. It is not your upline's job to build your business for you. It is your job to build your business. It is your job to make your calls, to set your appointments, to do your presentations, to do the sign-up process, to follow up, to help the new people make their calls, to help them help people, and to grow their business. It is your job to build your business. And part of building your business is working with your downline group. So get involved. Let's wrap this thing up because I am going to hold this. It's about 1 hour and 5 minutes now. So let's wrap it up. Set up principles or policies for keeping problems from recurring. Every business, and I don't care what it is, every business has a set of principles. Every business has a system. When I was in the service, we had regulations. We had more regulations you could shake a stick at. And for every problem, there was a regulation. There was a solution. I had the manuals that thick. And somewhere in those manuals was a solution to every problem. But here's the deal. A policy's intent is to give clear direction and allow a better flow in the organization. Now, policies change. Understand this. Policies change when their use is no longer essential. So you may be in a business that has a policy change, a new way of doing things, a new product, a new idea, and the policies that work before won't work now. So policies change when they're no longer essential, but principles never change, never. So in your business, you've got a set of policies and you've got a set of principles. Here's a quote. It says, policies are many, principles are few. Policies will change, principles never do. So a policy's intent is to give clear direction and allow a better flow in the organizations, but policies can change, but principles don't. One final thought, and then I'm going to hush, because I've got this down to an hour. One final thought, and then we're done. Never allow others to think you always have the best answer. You are a leader. You are a problem solver. And it is essential as a leader that you become a problem solver. But never allow others to always think that you have the best answer, because you don't. There are other people who will see a problem from a total different way than you see it. They'll see it in another light. They will be able to relate it to something that they've had in the past. And whatever problem you're working on, someone else will be able to point out a better solution than you, and be big enough to say, wow, that's better than what I thought. That'll work better than my solution. Because if you allow people to think that you are the know-all, do-all, the only thing it's going to do is make them dependent on you. And the people that you're bringing up into your business will never be able to grow into the problem solvers that they need to be. All right. Now, in our next session, we're going to be talking about attitude. Now, we talk about attitude a lot in all these studies. This book has a few different angles on it I think you'll like. But we're going to be talking about attitude. Attitude is the extra plus in leadership. Attitude, you've heard it before, will determine your altitude. There's a lot of good books on attitude, not just this one. John Maxwell wrote some of the best books on attitude that I've ever read. I've got books of his on attitude I've still not read. I just keep buying them. I have new books come in almost every week. I'm an addict. I just keep buying books. But attitude is the extra little plus in leadership. So I told you I'd give you this information. Let me put this book away here. For those of you who are not in my marketing group, my name is Jim Laughter. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've lived here. I was born here. I was born out on a farm, 35, 40 miles west of here. Went to school here in a little country town. Graduated in 1971, joined the Air Force, was gone. 20 years active duty. Retired in 1991 after 20 years, went to work for Coca-Cola. And after that, after 21 years for Coca-Cola. Retired after 20 years from the Air Force, went to work for Sears for 21 years, and then went to work for Coca-Cola for 7 years. I got married to my sweetheart here, this Wilma. I love her more than anything in this world. I do. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. I proposed to her. I asked her to marry me on the first day we met. That's a true story. I'll have to tell you that story sometime. We've got 3 children, 5 grandchildren. We have traveled the world together. I've written a few books. I've written 13 novels. 6 of them have been bestsellers. I've got a couple of Western short stories on Amazon. You can find them. Published in a couple of anthologies. So I spend a lot of my life is taken up with books, as you can tell. I'm an active member of one of the single largest writers club in Oklahoma. It's called the Tulsa Night Riders. I've won the top award of Night Rider of the Year 2014. I've been inducted. I'm the seventh person to ever be inducted into the Night Riders Hall of Fame. It's a 70-year-old club. I'm the 7th person to ever be inducted into that Hall of Fame. I've held every office that the club has except for treasurer. I don't think they trust me with their money. I don't know. But my email is jimwilma, JIMWILMA, laughter, LAUGHTER, @gmail.com. You can call me at 918-510-4583. Now that phone number goes directly to a voicemail. If it does not recognize your phone, it will send you directly to voicemail. If my voicemail doesn't recommend it, sometimes it won't even take your call. So I recommend that you text me. Let me know that you saw me on the YouTube and you've got a question about whatever. And if you are interested in earning a good, viable, part-time income, I've got just the solution, not the problem. But I have the solution for you if you're coachable, if you're willing to do the work. But again, I will tell you, I will not chase you. I won't run all over town trying to get somebody to do something. I have learned years ago that I cannot push a rope. As my old friend Larry McDonald used to say, I can't kiss a girl leaning away from me. And I can't climb a fence leaning towards me. Matter of fact, I won't even try to do either one of them. Okay, sometimes you just got to find another girl to kiss. But if you're kissable, if you're coachable, and you're willing to do some work, I can put you into a deal. I can put you into a business that I absolutely promise you will change the world. All right. So we are at the end of this session, and I think I took an hour and 7 minutes, hour and 8 minutes, give or take, whatever it was. So watch for the next session. And again, have any questions, call me, email me, text me, and we will we'll work it out. When the end of recording, it's been fun, and I hope you've enjoyed doing this as much as I enjoyed doing it. Go to my YouTube channel and look at all the books that I've reviewed. Now you'll see one on there that's called Skill with People. That was my first one, and it's kind of okay. The others are not too bad. Okay, I'm going through and revising some of them, but we'll get there. All righty, y'all have a great day. It's been fun.